Hi, everybody. I like to start early. It's only like 1 minute early, but we also might need more chairs back there. So we'll see how it goes with every. Oh, okay. All right. I heard we got the chairs coming. You guys, if you need a seat, go that way. Okay, louder. That's good. All right. I don't know if Carolyn Murphy is here this afternoon, but anyway, I appreciated her pump for Speakers Bureau at the talent show on Wednesday. That was very, very nice of her to encourage all of us. Now, also, let me ask you, is there anybody here for the very first time at Speakers Bureau, like they're new and very good. Just, you will really like having more knowledge about all the people you hear about here. It's a great way to get used to living at Granby Terrace and to see where you might really want to find out more about them. Now, I don't know about Frank, so don't judge this one.
I'm going home.
Okay. All right. With that said, with this whole year, we do have speakers, but if anyone in the room feels motivated to work on their talk for next year, please come and let me know so that we will book a time for you in 2027. And before I quit, please turn off your cell phones or mute them so that Frank's lovely, lively program will not be interrupted. All right, that's it. Mr. Frank Barr.
I appreciate everybody coming. I didn't expect anybody to be here.
We can't hear you.
Well, let's see, can you turn it up a little bit? Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How about that? No? How about now? What am I gonna do? Huh? Can you increase it? It was fair.
It's like doing karaoke.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay? All right, I don't know how much potpourri you guys can stand in 45 minutes. But more importantly, I don't know how much I can stand. For those of you who didn't recognize me from my official Speakers Bureau photo, I thought I'd put up my, guess. Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. I went there in 1955 in the 10th grade, in 1956 in the 11th grade, in the 12th grade. In the summer of 1957, Little Rock built Hall High School on the west side of town, and mostly they were portable buildings. All my friends opted to go to Hall. They asked me what was I going to do, and I said, I'm going to Central in my senior year of the 12th grade. There was a lot of apprehension that year because of Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. The Supreme Court had ruled that segregation was unconstitutional. Eisenhower made sure that integration was enforced. 9 black students were escorted into the side door of the building because of the angry crowds in the front. Democrat Governor Orval Flawless used police to have the black students removed. They said, we're not coming back until we're assured of adequate protection. Ike saw to it. He used the Insurrection Act to enforce integration. The 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles, the heroes of Bastogne and the Battle of the Bulge in World War II kept the peace. There was a large amount of tension there, but the students didn't create it. That's me in the picture up there. We were just spectators watching the events transpire. Every morning, the 9 students were escorted into the building protected by military guards. The senior, Ernest Green, and I had 3 classes together. Ernie received a full scholarship to Michigan State University for graduating from Central. Compliments of the NAACP. Later, much later, President Clinton awarded him the Congressional Gold Medal. I would say he earned it. In the summer of 1958, our family moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. My dad was a special agent with the Treasury Department. In 1958, Albuquerque only had a population of about 200,000. There was no I-40, I-25, there was Route 66 going through Albuquerque and State Road 422 going to Santa Fe. That summer, I worked north of Durango, Colorado on a 700-acre ranch owned by R.B. Wagon. I was there most of the time by myself. I put out salt blocks, I rode a fence. I kept track of 70 head of cattle. We castrated, inoculated, dehorned, and branded. Of course, I didn't do that by myself. In the fall of that year, I enrolled in UNM, University of New Mexico. It was expanding back then. I entered Naval ROTC to take naval science. Because UNM was noted for its geology department, I thought about being a petroleum engineer. I learned about igneous rocks, metamorphic rocks, sedimentary rocks, salt domes, plate tectonics. Also, there was a Dr. Frank Hibben. He was a world-renowned anthropologist, New World anthropologist. I learned about Australopithecus, Gigantopithecus, Cro-Magnon, Homo erectus, Neanderthal, and let's don't forget the ape man of Chukotay. We all know about him. But something else happened to me. I fell in love. I went to school part-time, I worked part-time, I ran heavy equipment, road graders, front-end loaders, forklifts. I was a short order cook, even worked at Safeway. I worked and nothing worked. So I hopped on my scooter and went to see my local recruiter. I joined the Air Force. They said I was technically inclined, and I already knew that. So on January 6, 1961, I kissed Dottie goodbye at the Sunport in Albuquerque, and I boarded a 727 up the back ramp. That's before D.B. Cooper came along. I went through basic training at Lackland in San Antonio, and in February I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls. I started electronic tech school there 35 weeks en route to Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii. On May the 5th, 1961, Dottie came down, we got married. We had to rent a little house in Burke Burnett, Texas, about 5 miles from the Red River. It was $35 a month. I graduated from tech school on October 31st, 1961. I was no longer going to Hawaii. I had orders that had been rescinded, and I was now sent to another school, cryptography, with 13 other students. So Dottie and I packed up the 55 Chevrolet and headed for Lackland Air Force Base back down in San Antonio, another 14-week school. This time I was going to Wiesbaden, Germany. There was no way Dottie and I could go. We couldn't afford it. And about that time, she told me that I was going to be a daddy sometime next May. I'd heard that I could get a compassionate deferment, at least until the baby was born, so I went and talked to the personnel, people over in the records section. And I was told that since the orders were issued in Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, there might be a problem. Check back. So I checked back about every day. Time passed, and I graduated in February 1962. 14 of us went over to the records section to pick up our orders. They called out 13 names. I said, what about Frank Barr? They said, well, you gotta go back and see Sergeant Root. I'll never forget him, back in the records section. I went back there and he handed me orders deferring me to Charleston Air Force Base, South Carolina. Well, I floated back to the house that day and handed my orders to Dottie. I thought she was gonna have the baby right there, but she didn't, you know. But the doctor had told Dottie that she should probably fly to Charleston rather than drive, so I loaded up the old 55 Chevy with the pots and the pans and the sheets and pillowcases and took off. By the time I got there, she had everything under control. She'd met the squadron commander who really loved her, and she had arranged temporary housing for us until we could find a place. All I did was report in. At that time, Charleston Air Force Base was a tactical air command base. The 444th Fighter Intercept Squadron was there. They flew F-101 Voodoos, F-102 Delta Daggers, and F-106 Delta Darts. The military airlift was there, military air transport service. They flew 124s and 130s and later C-141s. I was a member of the 1968 Communications Group. I was still taking USAFI courses, that's U.S. Air Force Institute courses. The squadron commander asked me if I would take over the base Mars station, military affiliate radio system. How could I refuse him? So while I was there, I designed a rhombus antenna using my Terman's engineering handbook. It enabled Charleston Air Force Base to become the East Coast contact for Christchurch, New Zealand, and we were able to support Operation Deep Freeze 1962. That put a feather in the cap of the base commander and the squadron commander, and it sure didn't hurt me either. I started teaching classes so that civilians could get their amateur radio license. I taught the electronic requirements for the ham license, and one of the operators taught Morse code. One student was a captain from the Military Air Transport Service. I became a crew member on his C-130. Captain Bims was instructing B-57 pilots how to land the heavier C-130. On May the 15th, 1962, Linda Elizabeth Barr was born at the Charleston Navy Base, North Charleston, South Carolina. 8 pounds, 10.5 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a healthy baby girl, and her mother was healthy and happy too. 2 years later, Dottie, Linda, and I loaded the car up for another cryptographic school at Lackland Air Force Base, another 14 weeks. This time it was solid state digital encryption and vocoding, that's voice encryption, like the red phone on the president's desk. I graduated, we returned to Charleston, time passed. Finally, the time came when we had to make a decision, so we re-enlisted on January 1965, and the Air Force found me. 1957 Com Group, Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii. Dottie, Linda, and I returned to Albuquerque. Our parents lived there, so we set up housekeeping, and I boarded an airplane for Honolulu. Hickam Air Force Base, tropical breezes, coconuts, sunsets, hula girls. I handed my orders to the orderly room clerks, and this is what I got. What are you laughing at? 1957 Com Group, Detachment 1, Johnston Island, the Rock. Where is it? That little white speck up there? 715 miles southwest of Hawaii, 1,300 miles east of Kwajalein, a mountain 14,000 feet deep, 7-foot elevation, 1 degree off the equator, unaccompanied. That means no dependents, 365 days. Welcome to good old Johnston Island. Upon arrival, you were issued khaki shorts, khaki shirts, crepe rubber sole shoes, and a baseball cap. Uniforms were put away because of the humidity. You were issued a bicycle if you wanted it. When I was there was only 2 blocks of paved street. We were members of the Joint Task Group 8.6. I worked at the JOC, the Joint Operations Center, heavily concreted, no windows, 4 stories, all completely classified. In the off time, I ran the Base Exchange radio repair shop, and I was also the projectionist for the Base Movie Theater. But I was always on call for the JOC. I mean, where else could I go anyway? Johnston was on the Pacific Missile Range. On July the 25th, 1962, just 3 years before, a Thor missile exploded on the launch pad scattering highly contaminated debris all over the island. Service personnel were heavily exposed to radiation both during the explosion and in subsequent emergency cleanup efforts. They all suffered long-term effects from radiation-based cancers, some lethal. When I was there, the mission was secret, anti-satellite defense, launch, into orbit, locate a target, destroy it, but with a non-nuclear warhead. A nuclear warhead that would be easily detectable might trigger escalation of the Cold War. The sounding rockets that you see there test atmospherics for the main launch. The main launch was a PGM-17 Thor. It was the first intermediate range ballistic missile in the Air Force inventory. It had a range of 3,200 miles. It was 65 feet high, 8 feet in diameter, and weighed 109,000 pounds at liftoff. The white building in the foreground that you see was the hangar that it's kept in. It's rolled out horizontally, raised vertically, and then loaded. The whole complex there was called the bowling alley, and you can see the relative size from the guys down here pointed at by the arrow. During a dangerous propellant loading, a DPL, non-essential personnel had to evacuate the 1,200 feet away from the bowling alley. So we all went fishing out on North Island. I saw 4 night launches. There's no sound, but that's okay. I saw a number of daytime launches, but the night launches were spectacular. You couldn't even look at the exhaust. There are 4 islands within the atoll, and the LCM was the method of transport to the other 3 islands. To pass the time, we sometimes played harmless pranks on one another. As an example, I came home one night after running the base movie theater. The hallway of the barracks was dark. I reached to the door, my doorknob, and there was barracuda jaws locked on my doorknob with a note attached that said, "The Red Baron." We all had secret code names: the Red Baron, the Black Knight, Snoopy, Batman, Superman, the Joker. When a person had done his time on the island, it was customary to pass on a relic to his replacement. The man I was replacing gave me a treasure. It was a pink and white striped shirt that was so thin it had been washed so many times it was almost transparent. One day, a few of us decided to go fishing in the LCM. I wore my pink and white striped treasure. We had engine trouble, and we were there for about 8 hours. A lot of us got sunburned. One guy had to go to the hospital. When I got back to the barracks, I took off my pink and white striped shirt. I was sunburned with pink and white stripes. I was a sight to see. I was immediately given my code name, and you guys better not use it. The Pink Fink. I guess you could say that my secret code name had been exposed. Anyway, of the 4 islands, 2 were man-made. There was North Island and East Island. North Island was the long-haul transmitter site, and East Island was the receiver site. They were about an acre each. One night, a radio guys called me on the phone and said a C-130 was flying over, and the aircraft commander wanted to talk to me. So I got on. It was Captain Benz from Charleston. He was just giving me a hard time about being on JI for a year, and he was going to Australia to eat steak. Just another one of my friends. Sand Island, the other naturally occurring island, was a bird sanctuary, and it still is. Every bird on the west coast of the Americas must land on Sand Island. In the 1700s and 1800s, the island became a source for guano. And you all know what guano is if you watch the last karaoke program, Dirty Birds. The U.S. Coast Guard operated a LORAN station, long-range radio navigation. It was, this was before GPS. The tower was 625 feet high, and I would hate to be the guy that had to go and change the clearance light bulbs and everything. It was decommissioned in 1992 with the advent of GPS. Also on Sand Island was the Baker Nunn camera installation. It was part of SPADATS, the Space Detection and Tracking System. It kept track of and cataloged orbiting objects, especially those of our adversaries. It is or was a remarkable camera system. It could photograph an object the size of a basketball in low Earth orbit, and that's about 120 miles. But it wasn't all work. There was a pitch and putt golf course. There was fishing every month. $50 prize was given for the largest fish in a particular category. There were small sailboats, sunfish class, scuba classes. There was no surface swimming. You'd be a topwater bait for the sharks. There was a softball league. I was on the all-star team that year playing center field. That's me on the bottom right there. After you had settled into the island, one thing that you did is you went to supply and scrounged you some packing material to make yourself a base cushion for the base theater. The fold-down outdoor seats of the base theater had no cushions. So your standard movie-going equipment was your poncho, because it rained, and your homemade seat cushion. The movie cost 25 cents. I received $21 a month as projectionist from Armed Forces Radio and Television Service, AFRTS. I ran 2 simplex 35mm projectors and received 3 movies a week. On Monday and Tuesday, I ran a movie. On Wednesday and Thursday, I ran a movie. And on Friday, I ran the 3rd movie. On Saturday, I ran that movie, but I picked one of the movies from the week and ran a double feature. AFRTS didn't appreciate it. I told them, come on down and we'll talk about it. But they never did. One day I received a call from the guys at the Johnston Island Air Terminal. They were wondering if I could fix their PA system. It had been on the blink for a year. So I went over and fixed it. They asked, how can we repay you? I said, when I leave here, I want connecting flights, because some guys had sit in Honolulu for a week or 10 days before they got out. So with 365 days on Johnston Island, I boarded a Northwest Orient flight that had come in from Kwajalein and was going to Honolulu. I sat on the port side of the aircraft to be able to see my barracks one last time. Our barracks was less than 75 feet off the runway. As the airplane rolled by and I looked out the window, all my friends were lined up outside. Farewell, Hallmark. My friends. Well, there's nothing left on Johnston Island now except for the JOC building, what's left of it, the runway and radioactivity. Plutonium-238 has a half-life of 37 and a half years, it's only been 64 years. And Plutonium-239, which is also there, has a half-life of 24,000 years.
Oh.
Due to the alpha contamination, the island is closed. Returning to the States, Dottie, Linda, and I moved to Rancho Cordova, a suburb of Sacramento, to Mather Air Force Base. I was a member of the 2034th Communications Squadron. The Super Guppy flies from Mather. It carries rocket bodies produced by Aerojet General in Rancho Cordova to Florida and other places. With the rank of Tech Sergeant, I became NCOIC of the Cryptographic Maintenance Unit. I supervised 3 technicians. The first day, they were a little bit sheepish as we went back to go into the crypto vault, and I know why. This was taped on the front of one of the My reputation preceded me thanks to my buddies at KI and my friends. I was squadron NCO and training NCO, and I was also the cryptographic supervisor. I taught electronics, AC and DC circuits, radar maintenance, and air traffic control. But about that time, our daughter Linda was growing up. She was almost 6 years old. And Dottie and I had discussed a lifestyle change. Dottie's dad was in the Army and she'd moved around most of her life. She didn't really want that for our daughter. And so through the providence of God, I'm not kidding, My brother called me one day and said that Burroughs Corporation wanted electronics people to work on their large computer systems in Albuquerque. I went to Sacramento to the Burroughs office. I interviewed, took some tests, I got hired. So with 8 years and 14 days in the Air Force, I was discharged on January the 20th, 1969. Burroughs Corporation is an old company, started around 1880. It started by manufacturing mechanical adding machines, but now it had a state-of-the-art computer system, the B5000 series. The Burroughs B5500 became the silent workhorse of Cold War intelligence operations. Its computational power remained classified for decades. The 5500 was in production for over 10 years, arguably the longest of any large-scale computer. Most modern-day microprocessors, including iPhones, use some portion of its design. Again, I went to computer school, this time 40 weeks in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, God.
2 blocks from the GM building. Loveless Foundation leased the B5500 from Burroughs. They were involved in aerospace medicine, specifically retirement for cause. Why retirement ages vary? Why do some people need to retire when they're 50 and others can go till they're 85? The Department of Energy bought time on the computer. After about 5 years, DOE ended its contract. They moved to a mini computer on Kirtland Sandia base in Albuquerque, and they offered me a job with more money. The Inhalation Toxicology Research Institute, Kirtland Sandia base, New Mexico. It's a joint Army Air Force base. The main gate was only 2 miles from our house, but it was 14 miles to work. ITRI, the Inhalation Toxicology Research, sat out by itself. They did radiation studies on biological systems. The U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, the predecessor to the DOE, created the ITRI facility in 1960 to study late occurring health risks from inhaling small amounts of radioactive particles. Animals were exposed to radioactive aerosols to see where the isotopes were assimilated in the body. In other words, to see where the tumors grew. One radioactive isotope used was cesium-137. It has a half-life of 30 years. It's a very active beta particle emitter. The DEC PDP-1170 computer served ITRI's purposes with a smaller footprint. I programmed and maintained the computer. I also designed computer interfaces for nuclear counters, photomultipliers, and Geiger-Muller detectors. I designed other interfaces to automate equipment, including whole body respirators, scanning microintometers, and nuclear spectrum analyzers. I also received an award from the American Vacuum Society in Washington, D.C. A PhD at ITRI nominated me for my work on a microbalance which weighed sub-micron radioactive particles. There's a picture of 3 engineers. There's one there with black hair and mustache. I guess I just don't know what happened to me. All employees wore dosimeters, which recorded total radiation exposure. These were checked monthly by health physics personnel. Stepping over the yellow line meant that you were entering an area where radioactivity was present. Full-face mummy suits and breathing filters kept the product off of view. We were given periodic whole body scans looking for elevated levels of radioactive potassium. Happily, I can say that I don't glow in the dark. But after about 4 years, I got tired of it. Again, through God's providence, Rockwell International was coming to town, and they were opening up a new laboratory. It was a liaison between industry and the academic community. I went down and applied, and by golly, I got the job. Rockwell was paying California wages in New Mexico. I gave ITRI my 2 weeks' notice. The Albuquerque Development Laboratory, ADL, was a branch of the Rockwell International Science Center in Thousand Oaks, California. I walked in my first day, and there was a secretary sitting there, and I said, "Hi, I'm Frank." Well, she said, "Hi, Frank, we've been expecting." I said, "Okay." She said, "Let me show you around." So she took me back to the big laboratory room, and there was nothing there. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "You're the first person we've hired." So then the test equipment started coming in, the laboratory equipment started coming in, so I set it all up on all the lab benches the best way I knew how. Adjacent to the main building was a smaller building that was going to be a machine shop. And because I had forklift experience, I moved in the lathes and the drill presses and the mills and set that all up. Finally, people started coming. I was the lead engineer on an ultrasonic test set for the Picatinny Arsenal. There can be manufacturing defects in 155 millimeter projectiles. These defects can cause premature failure of the round. Rockwell had developed a proprietary transducer called an EMAT, an electromagnetic transducer. Unlike ultrasound for babies, where you put the cream on the transducer and then apply it to the body, EMATs are non-contact. It can generate and detect ultrasonic waves in metal without touching the surface. I designed all the electronic circuitry to both drive the EMAT, image the flaws, make decisions as to the disposal of the shell after inspection, all automatically. The shell entered the machine on this side, was raised up, rotated, inspected, put down, and shot out the other side. And if it was good, it kept going. If it wasn't, it got clicked off into the bit bucket. I received a patent for that one. There are approximately 130,000 miles of railroad rail in the United States. Railroad rails are created by extruding hot steel through a die. The extrusion process can create voids and bubbles in the rails. Over time, heavy trains can cause fatigue, collapse, and derailment. Rail inspection is necessary for railroad safety. Because older systems required contact with the rail, the inspection rate was about 6 miles per hour. With the non-contact EMAT, we were good for over 40 miles an hour. It used quite a bit of the electronics that I developed for the shell inspection system. The EMAT was also used in pipeline inspection. Pipeline inspection gear, PIGs, were inserted in the pipe and pushed along by the flow of the oil. It recorded any flaws detected in the pipe walls. Rockwell had a contract with Iran. There are oil pipelines in the Persian Gulf. The pipes send naturally occurring high sulfur laden oil from offshore wells to the mainland. Add moisture and the resulting sulfuric acid can corrode the pipes. Therefore, pipeline inspection is a necessity. Folks at ADL were tasked to go to Iran. With the Iranian revolt in 1979, Rockwell terminated the contract. I guess you could say we dodged a bullet. The black surface on the belly of the shuttle is ceramic tile. During glide testing, some of the tiles sloughed off. This would have been catastrophic during re-entry of the spacecraft. Loss of the tiles was due to expansion of the shuttle's titanium body caused by heat. The ceramic tiles don't expand as much. To accommodate the difference in the expansion, a flexible synthetic rubber adhesive is used. We engineered an ultrasonic inspection system to detect voids due to insufficient adhesive behind each tile. This was not EMAT technology. This was more akin to ultrasound for babies, but without the cream. I was on the engineering team, the shuttle engineering team. Because of our involvement in non-destructive testing at ADL, Dottie and I were invited to attend a black tie event given by the group of scientists and engineers returning from Turin, Italy. They gave us a dissertation on their findings during the first investigation of the Shroud of Turin. It was pretty interesting. One day, Dr. Peter Cannon, the president of the Science Center in Thousand Oaks, came over and said they were closing the center because it violated some tax status of the Science Center. They said Rockwell provided a placement service, and some of the scientists came over from the Science Center to see if there was anybody that they wanted to snatch up and take back with them. They took 3 people. They took a secretary whose husband already worked at the Science Center. They took a PhD, and his name was Robert E. Lee, if you can believe that. And they took me. I went out to the ADL, to the Albuquerque Development Lab, the last day. There was nothing there, all the equipment had been moved out. So in effect, I had turned the lights on at ADL, and now I was turning the lights off. The Rockwell International Science Center in Thousand Oaks, California sits in a beautiful location. We call it the Seance Center because some of the things they did there appeared to be magic. I continued working in non-destructive testing for a while, and then I moved over into infrared imaging. There I developed a microprocessor-based imaging system for the Hellfire missile. It was a Rockwell military contract. The system used semiconductor material, which is high sensitivity to infrared radiation, in other words, heat. Here is a short video, early video, showing the capabilities of the system. I designed all the video processing circuitry for the detector. You gotta remember this is over 40 years ago. But the thing to remember is the cat's eyes are not more than 1/10 of a degree more hotter than its body. That's remarkable. This is our little West Highlands Terrier. You can see his tail light. The blue portions are cooler than his fur where he's drawing in air. But it wasn't all work. Hurry up, Sam, get off there, boy. I also emceed the Christmas show every year, and I want you to notice my plastic clean room smock that I transformed into a sharp tuxedo. Later on, I moved over to the gallium arsenide facility in Newbury Park, California. That's a couple of miles from the Science Center. Gas semiconductors are faster than silicon semiconductors. They're used in spacecraft electronics because gas is more impervious to high energy particles encountered in space. I developed all the parametric test software for the manufacturing facility. Around 1993, Bill Clinton killed some military projects. Rockwell wanted to opt out. The government said there are 3 secret projects that are going to be completed regardless. I was appointed project manager. The contracts were in Newport Beach, California, 80 miles from Thousand Oaks. I rode a helicopter almost every day for nearly 2 years to Newport Beach. At the risk of going over my allotted time, I must tell one more story. Rockwell had a contract with Aerospatiale, the French helicopter company. The avionics, the electronics in a helicopter can cost almost as much as the airframe. Rockwell furnished the avionics in exchange for a helicopter. Initially, Rockwell flew Bell helicopters, which had 1 engine. They had incidences where the engine had failed, and the helicopter had to auto-gyrate down, that's without engine, and land, and one landed in a school ground one time. The Aerospatiale French helicopter has twin turbine engines, and it'll fly on 1 engine. So it's a safer helicopter. The chopper pilot, his name was Brad, and I landed at the Science Center one evening, and standing over there was Dottie, just outside the helo pad. I asked Brad, could we take her up for a ride? He said, sure, why not? So Brad, having been a search and rescue pilot, took it up and turned it up on end and rotated around the Ronald Reagan Library, and Dottie's blue eyes got about that big. It was great fun. When the contracts in Newport Beach were completed, I was offered an early retirement at age 55, and I took it. Almost. Some of my friends in Texas called and from Motorola and said, "Frank, you're too young to retire. Come on down here and work. We need a parametric test engineer." So Dottie and I wrote it up. We left the kids and grandkids in California and moved to Austin, Texas in 1995. APRDL, the Advanced Products and Research and Development Laboratory, developed microprocessor chips for automotive and military applications. The Motorola M6800 and M68000 microprocessors use almost identical architecture to that of the old D5500. An example of one of the applications, Mercedes had a microprocessor in its transmission. If it failed, it cost $3,200 to replace, and that was around the year 2000. It goes without saying that integrated circuit reliability is paramount. Parametric testing during manufacturing processes ensures reliability, and I developed all the parametric test software for that manufacturing facility. Here again, a full mask clean room suit is required to eliminate particle contamination. This time, it's to keep you off the product. At iTry, it was to keep the product off of you. A clean room is defined by the number of particles that exist in 1 cubic meter of air. And a micron is 1/1,000,000th of a meter, 39.37 inches. The ambient outdoor air contains around 35 million particles in each cubic meter of air that range from 1/2 micron and up. Motorola's clean rooms had no more than 12 particles, 3/10 of a micron, or smaller in each cubic meter of air. But Motorola developed the flip phone and production had stopped. In the clean room, somewhere in the manufacturing process, particle contamination was interfering with the production of the CCD camera chip, just like the camera chip in your iPhones. And I was assigned to the problem. I found the source of the particle contamination. I created a device to eliminate the contamination. They affectionately called it Mars Snorkel because the way it brought clean, filtered air into the system. I was awarded Motorola's Engineer of the Year for that one. But APRDL is no more. Motorola sold its manufacturing business to a company called Freescale Semiconductor. So this time I retired for good in 2006. Here's a short list of some of my contributions. I won't try to read them. It'll go away in a minute. So while I was relatively successful in my career, I always had a safe haven to return to when things went awry. Dottie created it. She's my traveling companion through life. Dottie and I did it all together. Thank you.
I don't think anybody was really sleepy, were you? I couldn't imagine understanding that list. Sorry, Frank. Really. Half the words were a mystery to me, and I know a lot of science words, but it was so new to me. Do any of you have questions for Frank? Good, I right here.
Frank, all of the subjects that you did work in, did you get an honorary degree for any?
No, I have no degree. I was a non-degreed engineer at both Rockwell and Motorola. I've got a bunch of hours, but I never got the sheet scale.
Tremendous.
Did you get a nice award for being Motorola Engineer of the Year?
I did that, yeah.
Good. I would hope so, yes. I mean, because how much money did you save, Motorola, when you found the thing to eliminate the particles? You have any idea?
Did you buy my, flip phone? Did you buy a flip telephone?
Uh-huh.
We all had them.
No, I don't tell you.
Well, I know, that's millions,
I
millions of
don't have any
dollars.
idea how much money it saved.
Yeah, that's right, because you could still manufacture. All right, what else?
Question over there. Don't give it to Joe, though.
Did you have to have any special security as you were working on the different projects?
And I was working on which projects?
Any one of the big projects?
Well, of course, I had a top secret cryptographic clearance. And then I had a secret clearance at Motorola and a secret clearance at Rockwell.
But did you have special security people with you?
There were rooms that were locked, and you had crypto locks to get in. And, oh yeah, there was security in the facility, but, there was not security from the standpoint of, for classified, because, it was for people that might be coming in, so we never worried about it because we were buried so far back that it didn't matter, that unless they knew the building, they wouldn't ever find us. So, Joe's got a question over there.
Frank, I was just curious, you live in so many different places. Did you ever forget on your way home from work where you were living?
No, I do now.
Any more? We'll get you a mic. Okay, there you go.
Frank, I heard a rumor that you might be related to Alexander Hamilton. Is that true?
John Burr? Yeah, it's true.
The first time that I met Frank, he pointed his finger at my chest and pulled the trigger. He said, "You probably don't realize what I just did, but I was making out for my relative, Alexander Hamilton." So we had bonded at that point.
Any more, guys?
The hand over there.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever have a bodyguard or need a bodyguard?
No, just from Dottie.
So Dottie, how was it that whole year that you didn't see Frank for a year when he was on Johnson Island, right?
It was about a year and 3 months. It was a year and 3 months.
Yeah, because I had to go to another school before I went there. Yeah, Johnson, when you can sit and see the end of the island there and turn around and see the end of the island there, and there, I bought 2 little Sony tape recorders, 3-inch reels, and we used to send those back and forth. And then because I knew the guys at the radio sites, I was able to talk to her long haul some nights. I called her at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Johnson was quite an experience. It really was.
She had the baby by
There were a lot
herself.
of,
Yeah, you had a baby.
I still got a couple minutes? Or,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Well, this is a question really for Dottie, who you said you didn't want him to stay in the service because you had grown up on all these bases and moved around so much. It sounds like you moved around a lot.
Yeah, my
And
family
when-
did.
But I mean, after you married Frank, you moved
Yeah, I still moved.
And she still wants to. She's ready to go anytime, anywhere.
Okay, guys, anybody else? Oh, good.
We have a question. All the places you've traveled, all the places you've been,
I'm sorry.
what prompted you to come to Arizona?
Well, we had 6 motorhomes, and we've been all over. So we had friends, we lived in Bastrop, Texas, and all of our friends dissipated, basically. They went different places. And one day I asked Dottie, what do you want to do? And she says, I like Arizona. So I said, all right, so we'd always gone to California to see our kids, so we've always gone up to 8 and then that way up through Buckeye and out to bypass Phoenix. And so we said, let's go to Buckeye. Well, we went to Buckeye and Buckeye is Buckeye. And so we went back home and Dottie got a realtor from here and she took us around all the places and we wound up over here in Sun City Grand, the Grand now. And that's how we got here. It was a pretty nice place, really.
Okay, guys. Thank you. More? That's it. It sounds like it might be time to clap for Frank and let